Welcome to Matters of DeCorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. I missed some time in there, not the biggest amount of time I've missed of late. And there are some changes at the moment. You may have noticed one already. Um, I am wearing my Corsair gaming headset. It blinks. I'm very fond of blinking things. I have a matching keyboard. They are all by the same company that makes the RAM in my new computer, and I can control the RGB blinking on all of them. It is kind of amazing. Thank you, Andrew, for all of your help there. Um, One reason that I am using this as opposed to the other collection of audio devices I have. The Blue Yeti, it's still here. It's moved over there, but that and the shotgun mic that came with my new camera and the 3 for $5 lavaliers that failed me so badly and caused me last week's recording. Um, they all pick up a sound in my office that this microphone does not. It is not a loud sound. It is not that bad of a sound. But if you saw my last video, you definitely heard it in the background. I don't have much I can do to remove it. Um, I can try, but my sound editing skills, while they have gotten better of late, are still not what I would call good. So that is why we are here, where we are at. Other changes, this is not the recliner you might be more used to seeing me in. That recliner tried to kill me about a month or so back. Um, it snapped off at the base and dumped me over backwards, crashing my head into a table. Um, More of a problem with my back than my head. This recliner was purchased as a replacement fairly quickly, and has been filling in. Um, Other changes is that I'm currently self-isolating. Like so many people at this point in time, given this unusual circumstance we find ourselves, a public health crisis unprecedented in our time, but not unprecedented, um, self isolation feels an awful lot like my regular days, with some exceptions. Um, I spend most of my days in this office. I spend most of my days not moving that much, doing all of my work in this corner of the world. I'm got three screens here: my Wacom Cintiq, my main computer's monitor, and the monitor for my secondary computer, which mostly handles media server and also serves as the ARC server for my Wednesday group's ARC game, which has turned into a 5 day a week thing, 7 day a week event, because it's keeping us busy in the evenings. We limit our hours because there are some of us who might obsess a little bit more than we probably should on things like that. Guilty. Um, and working in this corner and doing the things I normally do, not that different now that we are self isolating. But the difference is, um, I am more isolated, obviously. My head gets empty faster. I need to go out and fill my head up from time to time. People watch, have a coffee someplace, um, get a little nosh at a restaurant, sit around, absorb the world, go see some interesting things. I love sitting in the mall and just watching the world go by. And, well, the mall's closed and everything else is also more or less closed. And so my regular 3 to 4 days a week of just being here is 7 days a week. of just being here. Also, um, I am terrible on my own. I can get a lot of work done. I do not self-motivate terribly well, uh, especially the after the cancer treatments. I used to get better at self-motivating because I had years of training and practice, and I had built up motivational skills. And that part of my brain is one of the parts that got damaged by the chemotherapy. So I'm having to pick that up all over again from scratch, and it's being slow. It only took me 45 years the first time. I can't imagine it'll take me nearly that long now, and I'm impatient with myself. Again, problems with executive dysfunction. Um, I have mentioned some of the people who are around me on a regular basis, not the least of which is Devin, my companion and assistant. Like the doctor, I have companions, people that are mostly there to fill in skills that I don't have, like organizing. My office looks like a bomb hit it. Um, and For whom I can look impressive, for whom I can do things that look impressive to other people that they can then react to. It is a function of my crushing low self-confidence and low self-esteem um, that I require a certain amount of external validation to carry on. That is also a difficulty of the executive function disorder. And now that is an occasional video conference, aside from having someone sitting on my futon and mentioning that what I am doing looks like I'm very clever. Discord has been a tremendous help, and my patrons have been amazing in keeping up with me and keeping the communication going. Hi, guys. You all rock. So these days it is trying to get something done. I go for walks. I wear a mask. I keep my social distance. I go for walks. The local 7-Eleven is going to get sick of me at some point in time. Hopefully not literally. And I might be indulging in more caffeine than usual. This should come as a surprise to no one. Speaking of my patrons, I asked them actually if there was anything they wanted to hear me talk about. I'm getting back into these. I'm building up my selection of subjects, but I'm still kind of working on it. And the request was I talk about my favorite Doctor Who villain. I am a big fan of the British science fiction show Doctor Who. Uh, and it's gotten more popular. The popularity's come and gone, waned and waxed over the recent years. Um, I remain a big fan, and there are questions when you say you're a fan of Doctor Who. There are questions that come next. Your bona fides of your fandom, as it were. Um, the first of which is, who's your favorite Doctor? Who's your favorite Doctor? Who's my favorite ex-girlfriend? Um, it's uh, it's a hard question to ask because I don't like any of them more than I like others. I like some of them less, one of them, but for the most part, um, I like the character of the Doctor. The Doctor's portrayal has its shifts and moves between actors over the series course as the Doctor regenerates into different persons with different personalities. There are, different portrayals, but it is always a show about the triumph of intellect and romance over brute force and cynicism. And as long as the Doctor is doing that, that's my character. Um, I do have some preferred portrayals. My first Doctor was John Pertwee, the third Doctor, classic Who, uh, back in 1975, I think, is when I first caught those episodes on PBS. And I will always have a soft spot for John Pertwee. Always. Style, suave, Venusian Nikito, so he had kind of the kung fu angle, and he liked his cars, he had neat gadgets. But my favorite from that era and from any era, truthfully, is Tom Baker. I have a 40-foot scarf next to my bed. My mother knitted for me when I was 14, 15, somewhere in there. Um, I have his sonic screwdriver started my collection of sonic screwdrivers. I have all of the replicas of all the sonic screwdrivers carried by any Doctor to this point in time. Uh, my favorite being Capaldi's sonic screwdriver, because that one's just beautifully creative and versatile. Um, Capaldi's probably my favorite classic Who Doctor. I love Tennant. I thought Matt Smith was great, but Capaldi brought something to the role that I enjoyed. I enjoyed his reactions and his acting and the passion that he brought to the role. I thought it was a great portrayal of a doctor that was not particularly human. He was more inhuman than many of the others in how he did not empathize the way you'd expect a human to empathize, or even some of the ways some of the doctors before him had empathized with people. But that did not mean that his values were not solid. And even with a lack of ability to properly empathize, he sympathized and acted on those sympathies. When it comes to Doctor Who villains, um, I like what has been done with villains in recent times because of the show's budget difficulties and the limited resources they had to work with in the early days. Doctor Who's gotten a rap for being that stupid rubber monster show, and there were some stupid rubber monsters. Daleks used to be something almost ignorable, even though they were the Doctor's constant foe. They were not that particularly menacing when it came right down to it. Cybermen had their period of time where they just weren't that. Their costuming did not convey the menace that the race really had. All of which has been fixed beautifully in New Who. All the races that have come back and been properly presented with good special effects and good costuming. Uh, Daleks, Cybermen, Sontarans, Silurians, all of them much deeper and more compelling villains than they used to be. Um, and many of them obviously they've played with the trope of making what is obviously the villain a more sympathetic character. That's fine when they do it. It's kind of fun because they have this history of the monster is the villain. Um, but they've also had a wonderful history of the humans being the villains and the monsters being collateral or even victims of what humans have done. I have maintained in my role playing products that aliens, demons, corporations, what are the worst people are always the biggest monsters. Um, and by that token, my favorite Doctor Who villain is not a race or creature represented by someone in a suit or CG or puppetry, all of which have been magnificent. No, if you've watched much of my stuff, and certainly anything about Uncle Drac, it's hard to not know my favorite Doctor Who villain is the Master. But saying your favorite Doctor Who villain is the Master is a little bit like saying my favorite science fiction character is the Doctor. Because like the Doctor, when you say your favorite villain is the Master, the next question is, which one? A Time Lord like the Doctor, and with the same ability to regenerate, thus allowing multiple actors to portray the single character, each in their own way. I have not seen the most recent incarnation of the Master. I need to catch up. I'm about a season and a half behind. Um, but I'm going to take it backwards. Um, Missy is a amazing portrayal of the Master. Michelle Gonzalez did an amazing job portraying a female master or mistress, Missy for short. And uh, though that character gave the master a redemption arc, they worked for it and gave the master enough menace and danger and evil that it totally worked. It totally fit. I didn't have a problem with the redemption arc. They earned it. They earned it with writing. They earned it with the performance. They earned it with how well they treated the character. Uh, big Missy fan. John Sims, the master that first appeared for David Tennant. He was good. He was good. He was that subtle master, operating in the background until it was time to explode. By the time the master acted, he had already beaten you. He was just letting you know it at that point in time, which is a great trait for a villain. Um, back from John Sims, takes us back into classic Who. And next we would have to talk about Anthony Ainley. I loved Anthony Ainley's Master, the Master that killed the Doctor, the one that got Tom Baker and kept acting through the next 3 or 4 Masters. Uh, I really enjoyed Anthony Ainley's Master when we started with Anthony Ainley's Master. He had all the toys and the tricks and the menace. He had the great costuming, and he had the look, and he had the acting chops, and he could totally pull that off. And past a certain point, they just didn't know what to do with the Master, which is painfully obvious and really unfortunate. And the writers just kept dicking with the Master. Oh, he's been shrunk down. Oh, he's been turned into a cheetah person. It's like, what? The Master was no joke a furry for like an entire season of Doctor Who. Um, and it worked because it was Anthony Ainley, and he could work with anything they gave him. But I would like to have seen more about the Master's menace and not how do we dick with the Master this season. It was not the best treatment of a villain, and moves him down on my scale a little bit. But from Anthony Ainley moving down, there's 2 different actors portraying the Master, one of which isn't even worth mentioning. The This is a period of time during which the Master is in a terrible transitory state. His last regeneration in his cycle has not gone well, and he is effectively a walking, decaying corpse. They turned the Master into a lich, and that worked. It's probably where they got the idea to do all these things with Anthony Ainley's Master. Oh, the Master was so interesting when he was effectively a dying corpse in a robe. Um, but that was lightning in a bottle. That worked so well. Uh, two different episodes. First in The Deadly Assassin, and then in Keeper of Traken. Keeper of Traken, that was a mediocre actor in substandard makeup, even for the show. Poor costuming, whose entire job it was to hand over the character of the Master to Anthony Ainley. Um, Worth forgetting. The Master, as portrayed in The Deadly Assassin, so good. There were gore effects and practical costuming as well as puppetry effects, and he looked awful. And uh, in that state, he was exceptionally menacing. Um, because he had nothing to lose. He was at his rock bottom, and they're a villain with nothing to lose and everything to gain. You don't want to get in front of that. That's a terrible thing to have to deal with. Um, but uh, there is one more master to discuss, and that would be the first actor to portray the master, Roger Delgado, and that's my favorite. Roger Delgado started his run as the Master in the John Pertwee episodes and was the first incarnation of the Master was designed to be a foil to the Doctor, was designed to be the perfect villain for the perfect hero, uh, to be the Moriarty of the Doctor's homes. And a number of actors could have pulled it off, but Roger Delgado did something I'd never seen done with a villain before. um that your average Doctor Who villain, your monster, your warlords and robots and what have you, they are dangerous from the moment you see them. The moment there's that reveal of, oh, this is the guy, it's, oh no, that's terrible, and everyone's worried because there's menace in the room automatically. Roger Delgado's Master could walk into a room full of people because he looked perfectly human, well styled, maybe a Nehru jacket or a suit, which he wore like no one else. And he'd walk into a room and he was friendly, he was cordial, he was amicable, and you'd have a drink with him. And everyone around him would, that no one knew they were in danger. The Doctor would walk in and go, ah, crap, it's the Master. There's going to be trouble here. And people, no, 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 Doctor, you don't understand. He's obviously not that dangerous. He's friendly. He's helping us with our stuff. It's amazing. He's great. And then the switch flips. And with the raise of an eyebrow, with a single line of dialogue, with a gesture, with a cigarette holder, Roger Delgado's Master would take over the room. It's like, well, I have been arranging all these things, and now you're all in my power, and you will do as I say, or everyone is going to die. Everyone in this room, everyone outside of this room, just everyone. So, what are we doing? Master Hypnotist, um, bordering on just having powers of mind control. And there were some characters he couldn't dominate mentally, but he had the force of will that he could impose on those weaker than him, which was most people. Good way to explain why it never worked on the Doctor, because at the very least they were equals. When the Master was the villain, when Roger Delgado's Master was the villain, the Doctor had to work for his wins. And uh, everything close to the Doctor was suddenly up for grabs. You couldn't be 100% sure that the Doctor's friends and companions were going to make it out. Because the Master didn't just imperil them, he got shots off. And sometimes, if someone survived the Master taking a shot at him, it was just because that was part of the plan. A lot of these villain tropes have become passe over days. We think of them as tropes. Oh, that's what this villain does. That's how villains act. But this was 1975. This was back when those tropes were being birthed and fleshed out. And we have them today because they worked back then, right down to the Master's presentation, just about every time. It is from that portrayal of the Master that I get many of the elements of Uncle Drac. It's from that portrayal of the Master that I get my belief that a proper villain is the one you don't know is a villain until they decide it's time for you to know. That will carry you far when you're designing a villain. Sometimes it's the evil overlord in the castle over there, and oh my gosh, it's big and scary and terrifying, and that's obvious the villain. And sometimes it's the guy who just starts following you halfway through your quest line, maybe becomes a valued member of the party, and then explains to you, well, actually, I have something I need to confess. You've all been drinking poison for the past 2 months. I will give you the antidote if you do as I say. Yeah, when it comes to villains, when it comes to my favorite villain from Doctor Who, I've got some favorite monsters. I really dug the Fisher King from Capaldi's seasons. Um, I think the Daleks have become properly interesting of late, and I am pretty fond of just about anything that harkens back to the modern undead were very good. Um, and just because it was silly, Tom Baker's first episode and the giant robot that he had to deal with, because the Doctor fought a giant robot, and how can that not be amazing? But yeah, favorite top of the list at the very top, Roger Delgado's Master. Well, thank you for following me along on this particular ramble. It is going to be an interesting time as I try and get back into doing these things, partially because these are a tremendous exercise in self-motivation for me. I got to get them out. I can't let myself just slip. I slipped yesterday because stuff just didn't line up the way I wanted it to, and microphone malfunction, which is, again, why I'm using the headphones. Let me know what you think of the episode. What you think of the audio, what you think of the rig. Do the headsets bug you, or would it be a problem for you if I just kept this up, because this is getting my sound clean for the first time in a long time. Let me know. If you liked the episode, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like the episode, give me a thumbs down. Feedback is feedback. Let me know what you think of the rig. New camera, new sound, new options, new chair. Let me know what you think. Anything you'd like to hear me talk about? What's your favorite Doctor Who villain and why? Who's your favorite Doctor? Leave me a comment below. Anything you'd like to hear me talk about, different subjects you want to hear me cover. I will love reading your comments, and you will love leaving me one. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, why not? My channel is awesome. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you do, you might want to hit the little bell next to it so that you're actually alerted when my videos become available. If you'd like to help the channel out in a more substantial fashion, I invite you to hit me up my Patreon, www.patreon.com/ScottCorum, and consider donating. Absolutely anything helps. Allows me to make better videos more often. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. Be careful out there. Wash your hands. I'm Scott Corum. This is what has mattered to me, and I'll see you next time on the next Matters of DeCorum.